What's up, guys? Welcome into the first ever March Madness podcast from Bales, myself, and our boy Rueb. So, Bales, I've never done a March Madness podcast with you. Obviously, you are one of the lead college basketball analysts at Bet Karma. And if you guys are interested, this is a good time. We'll plug it. Bet Karma's March Madness package is only $39, so you get access to brackets, which would be Bale's bracket, and you also get all of their betting picks for the whole tournament, as well as articles. I know Bales wrote a really good article that he published today. It goes over all of the teams that are able to win the tournament based off metrics, how far they can go, like Final Four, whether they can win it all or not. It's that alone I feel like is worth it just to read that because I think that was a really good article, Bales. I read it this
Thank you.
morning. So be sure to head over to betkarma.com, pick that up, $39. I will definitely be tailing you guys in some bets as well as we head in here. So Bales is really like the sharp one here when it comes to college basketball. Rueb and I are kind of we're just here for the vibes, but I know you and I both cleaned up on Virginia last bracket season, so I'm really excited to get going. But Rueb, how are you doing? I haven't been on a pod with you in a minute here.
I'm good, man. I would have caught. I mean, the Andy Dalton news just broke, so I'm a little bit distraught here from some NFL news. But we're gonna push through it here. The reason that I wanted to come on here and break some stuff down is because I love the game theory aspect of the bracket contest. I mean, I know all three of us were really on Virginia 2 years ago, and when you just looked at the amount of people who were going to pick Duke to advance really far and to win brackets. I mean, that's how you can gain massive leverage on the field. And we're gonna look at some of those public pick percentages tonight and see where we can gain that leverage in this tournament.
Yeah, I think Bales, you would agree here, but March Madness brackets, it really is similar to DFS tournaments in that aspect that Rube was just talking about, like using game theory. And I would say, like, at least, 50 to 60% of people just don't even bake in that aspect at all. Like, most people just get it, the night before they fill out their bracket, whatever. But if you actually treat it like DFS, I do think there's a bigger edge than people realize.
I think I would even go a little bit farther and say this is closer to NBA DFS if you want to like go
Yeah.
super specific.
Oh baby, oh baby.
I just mean in the point of in NBA DFS, you're not getting too weird, right? Like you're playing Poku tonight. Obviously, he's the best play. Whereas in brackets, it feels like so many people kind of sit down and they're like, I know who's going to win. This is who I'm picking. And then they try to get really weird with it, where generally super weird stuff isn't the way to pick your bracket. You're not going to have, three different 12 seeds in the final four. It's the higher seeds are the better teams. And obviously upsets happen, but you don't need to get super ridiculous with your stuff. I'm really steady on that type of thought process. My brackets are usually pretty simple, straightforward. I do pick upsets, obviously. I feel like if I have a really good gauge on a game or something, but I tend to stick to like kind of the higher seeds are going to advance. And no, I'm not just going to stand there and put in, all the ones just because they're one seeds and stuff. But I feel like there's just certain spots where you should be taking, whereas a lot of people take their shots on like they'll have Winthrop beating Baylor. Why? Just because if it happens, they're ahead of everyone. But who cares because you've just gained like 5 points and it doesn't matter because anyone that had Baylor losing anyway isn't really that far behind you. So little game theory there to start it off.
Yeah, I do think people try to get too cute. Um, Definitely, especially people that don't really pay attention. But we're gonna go region by region, kind of just talk over some things. We'll look at public pick percentage. There's a couple ones that stuck out to me already. Um, so we'll head in. So we'll start with the West here. Basically, Gonzaga's region, right? Everyone knows that. Rube, I'll start with you. Is there anything that sticks out here? I know we were talking earlier in the group text, but this whole like Creighton, UC Santa Barbara, Virginia, Ohio section down here, like that is really giving us some trouble. But overall, I think it's pretty straightforward. And like, what are you doing with Gonzaga? Obviously, the overwhelming favorite here.
So for me, I do think Gonzaga, not only are obviously they got the number one seed, but I mean, in my opinion, they are overwhelmingly the best team in this tournament. I mean, yeah, offensively, this might be the best offensive Gonzaga team that we've ever seen coming into the tournament. And my favorite thing is that there will be a ton of public people being like, "Oh, Gonzaga, they always let us down. They're always the 1 seed. They're always a 2 seed." And, they fail in this spot. Some people won't even know that Gonzaga is like a 2-1, 2.5-1 favorite to win this damn thing. And to me, I have Gonzaga going very far to my national championship game and kind of pretty easily. I do agree with you that some of these spots are interesting on the lower quadrant, but honestly, it's not where you're going to win or lose your bracket, only because Gonzaga is so strong. And I don't feel like we're going to have, that sleeper Elite Eight or Final Four team. So I don't know if this is where you win or lose it. But Bales, who are some of your favorite picks here in this region?
Well, I think continuing on that, it's, usually the 1-1 gets the most ownership. Gonzaga is going to have the most ownership out of any singular team. I do think that probably Illinois gets the second most.
Yeah, just to harp on that here in some Yahoo public pick percentages. I mean, 45% of brackets have Gonzaga going to their national final, and 17% have Illinois. So just to harp on that.
Yeah, it feels like it's pretty obvious, and that doesn't. I don't think that makes it wrong. Whereas the other year, when you had Virginia and Duke, everyone was on Duke, but they were on Duke for the wrong reasons. They were on Duke because Zion was fun. That was basically it. Whereas Virginia had the best team that year. And the best team doesn't always win. I'll 100%, like Uconn won as a 7th seed. They very clearly weren't the best team in college basketball that year. But Gonzaga is the one for a reason. They're going to be the highest owned, highest picked percentage team to win the national championship for all the right reasons. In terms of just this quadrant, truthfully, I don't even know what I'm doing. It's 5:30 on Tuesday, and Creighton, Santa Barbara, Virginia, Ohio, I don't even have penciled in right now because I have no clue what I'm doing with them, because I think whoever wins the first day is going to take it. It's going to change who's going to win the second day, because some teams can beat others. Others they just match up poorly. And, I'm having a really difficult time picking who I think wins the first matchup between the 4 of them. So I think this is probably my hardest quadrant, which is relatively funny to me because I'm so headstrong on Gonzaga that, like, obviously I'm picking them in my main bracket to win the national championship. I've said it since before the season even started. And yet their quadrant, I still can't even pick between these 4 teams that I just have no clue what's going to happen.
I do think on the bottom half of the West region, this is where we could have a sneaky Sweet 16 team. I mean, I really like USC and Oregon's chances to potentially get there to the Sweet 16. So I think that's a spot where you could potentially gain a ton of leverage on your opponents. I mean, Oregon's only being picked in 6% of brackets to make it to the Sweet 16. And then let me look for USC's real quick. USC's is 7%. So 6 and 7%. So you can gain a ton of leverage on the field if you're able to nail one of those, and then you'll be knocking off a large portion of those Iowa teams. Bales, how realistic do you think it is that one of those 2 teams could knock off Iowa here?
It's realistic. I think it's realistic. A lot of people are much lower on Iowa than I am. I know Dom doesn't like them nearly as much as I do. But when you look at Iowa, do I care that they're going to get beat in transition? Do I care that they're not seen as the toughest team? Not really, because they're going to hit 53s on you and they're not going to turn over the ball. So why do I care if you go down low and bang? It doesn't make that much sense to me. On top of it, with the game on the line, and I love Luka Garza. He's the best player in the nation. But Bohannon is just draining threes left and right. It always happens. So I feel like I'm higher on Iowa than most people. But the funny thing is I'm also really high on USC. As long as a team can't shoot threes, they're not beating USC. So yeah, I do think Oregon's a bad matchup. It's going to turn into a 3-point shootout. In that type of thing, I favor Iowa. For those percentages, I don't think that Oregon's a bad pick. And then I also I'm 100% fine on USC's end too. Like I wouldn't try to convince you not to go them, is what I'm saying.
I will say too, I'm way more likely to take risks on like having an Oregon or a USC in my Sweet 16 where I'm super confident. I mean, in my Elite Eight, where I'm super confident where they will lose to Gonzaga, in my opinion. You know what I mean? In that matchup, to where I don't feel like I'm going to lose those Final Four points, which are, I mean, crazy important. Because as we move on in the bracket, it's way more important to be right. You know, especially in smaller field bracket pools. In the larger field ones, you obviously, I mean, you got to be pretty damn good in every round. But it's really important to nail those Final Fours and stuff. And because in this region, I'm very confident that Gonzaga will be there. I don't feel like I'm losing as many points by going a little bit off the grain and going against Iowa.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. Bales, I'm kind of on Iowa too. It seems like that's one of the bigger teams that people like are like wanting to fade. Obviously, I don't think they're going to beat Gonzaga, but that seems like one of the trendier teams to have lose in the Sweet 16 or something like that. But I love that they're first in turnover rate. That's really big for me when you get down in these close games, and obviously they can score with anyone. So I agree. I'm not as worried about the defensive struggles really.
One thing that I'll quickly say about Iowa here, and the big knock on them, right, is that they have no defense. That's what everyone says.
But they can score with anyone. So
But for no defense, right? Iowa ranks 50th in Ken Palm's adjusted defensive efficiency. Ohio State, who is a real sexy pick to make the Final Four at the moment, ranks 79th. And Baylor, who a lot of people think have very real hopes of winning the national championship, ranks 44th. So Ohio State's worse, and Baylor is right at Iowa. So if we're so worried about where Iowa sits defensively, we should probably be worried about Ohio State and Baylor as well.
Yeah, just to support that with some of these pick percentages, I mean, Ohio State's being picked at 11% to make the Final Four and Iowa only 5%. I think that has a lot to do with Gonzaga, maybe a little bit less than maybe that's the driving factor to those percentages. But just to show you what kind of leverage you can get on the field there.
All right, before we move on here, so Rueb, you said 45% of users have picked Gonzaga to win?
To make it to the national. Oh no, to win the national title. Yes, 45%.
All right, so Bales, I actually 45% is low to me. I thought it was going to be over 50. Yeah, I thought it was going to be definitely over 50.
That's what Yahoo pick percentages right now.
I was talking to my dad about it the other day, and I said if I was running 100 brackets, I would pick Gonzaga to win between 65 and 70 of them. So I would expect that they would be right around 65 to 70%. So 45 is, truthfully, it's like music to my ears. I would absolutely love to get that percentage.
Yeah, I think in larger field brackets you will too. I mean, people, like you said, people love getting off the board. There are some people who won't even look at sportsbook odds and see, how big of a favorite Gonzaga is in this spot. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was like thinking, like I was planning stuff out for this earlier, and I was going to guess it was like 65, 70% of people would pick Gonzaga. I'm shocked that you just gave me 45%. That's insane.
In some sharper, smaller pools, absolutely, but in a lot of these public pools, and if you're in a bigger one with, I would say probably 50 plus people, I mean, you're going to look at a lot of spread out ownership on Jippians. So.
Yeah, that's one very good thing to note at this point. These numbers are coming from Yahoo. People have nothing to lose making stupid picks on Yahoo because there's no money involved. So once you start playing for money, trust me, the picks will get sharper. The percentages of good teams will go up. But even so, if I find it hard to believe that Gonzaga would go up 20%, which still puts us below where basically all of us assumed that they would be sitting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I feel like most people watching this, like, I mean, a lot of people play in bracket pools like with people they work with or like their family or stuff, and those people I don't really think that's going to be super far off of Yahoo's, right? Like if you're in a casual one with just people in your office or whatever, like I don't think it's going to be that far off of Yahoo's.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree
I
with
definitely agree with that. Yep.
All right, we'll move on here. We'll go down to the East next. So obviously this is Michigan's region. This is where I think you can really win your bracket. Because I don't really know what's going to happen here, Bales. Like we were all talking about this morning. We don't really know what's up with Livers. We're assuming he doesn't play. I think pretty much everyone assumes him not to play, but I guess we're not ruling out him coming back if they win a couple games. So you have that whole situation. Alabama. I'm assuming like if you're not taking Michigan, Alabama will be the overwhelming favorite, but they could lose, right? So then you're going to create a really weird situation, and I think there's a couple teams that could make it out here. So I think this is a really tough one, and I think that this could really help you win. So, Bales, I'll start with you here first. Is there anything that sticks out to you right now in the East region?
Truthfully, this is probably the most exciting quadrant. I think there's a lot of teams that can do a lot of damage. Anyone that watches all my stuff knows how high I am on BYU. I think they got a really bad draw because their first game against either Michigan State or UCLA, I think is going to be much harder than most people would expect from a playing game. You kind of think, like, imagine Wichita State Drake. Like, that is an easy playing game. Wichita State probably wins. I'm not going to rule Drake out. But I would be fine facing either one of those two, whereas you have Michigan State or UCLA. I don't really want to face either of them in the first round. As for what's going to happen, I have no clue. I feel like there's realistically, I would say 8 seeds that I would feel comfortable putting into at least the Elite 8 here. Probably there's a few that I would knock out just based on the metrics that I run and stuff from Final Four that most people wouldn't see coming. So I would highly recommend getting that package to read the article because trust me when I say there's some teams in here that I promise people will pick for the Final Four that I personally do not believe can make it. But man, I don't know. There's just some teams that I really love, and I would really, really like to see BYU and Colorado really just make some serious deep runs right here.
Yeah, this is Rueb, let me sell you on this real quick. This is where I told you earlier one of the biggest edges in this bracket. This is absolutely incredible to me. So I know Bales and I, and then you said you like Colorado as well. We both really like Colorado. If you pulled up that public pick percentage from Yahoo.
Oh, it's insane. I was just about to talk about it.
Dude, I saw this last night and fell over. It's like almost 50-50 Colorado and Georgetown. I could not believe that.
50.15. 50.15. And it's all because people are just riding that, Georgetown. I mean, yes, they played incredible defense in that tournament and got on a hot run, but I mean, come on now, people. I mean, Colorado is the significantly better team here. I mean, we could go back and look at this and we may look dumb if Georgetown comes out and plays defense like they did in that stretch, but I mean, come on. Colorado is significantly better in this spot. And the fact that this is 50-50 is insane to me. I could not agree more.
Yeah, and I think they can beat Florida State. So if you're telling me that, like, if I'm going to take Colorado to win 2 games in my bracket and 50% of the field has them losing the first game, like, that's a really big edge. I could not believe that was 50-50 when I saw, like, Bales, these teams aren't even close. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I have Colorado so much higher, but to play devil's advocate, let's go there a little bit. Colorado does 2 things really well, right? They are second in the country in free throw percentage, and they're top 50 in 3-point percentage. But they don't get to the line, and they don't shoot threes. So now what happens? That's why Colorado just doesn't play to their strengths. They can't. They struggle to get to the line, and they don't shoot nearly as many threes as they should. They rank outside the top 200 in 3-point attempt per field goal attempt. And if you're not going to play to your strengths, you're going to do stuff like lose to Washington or California, which are just really bad losses. With that being said, it is crazy to me that people think that Georgetown all of the sudden because they won a tournament where they played Marquette, who's bad, Villanova, who lost their best player, and one of their other best players was playing on a high ankle sprain. And then once you get the ball moving, I mean, Seton Hall's good, but Seton Hall's not untouchable. And then they were 3 in, and Creighton didn't have that much to play for. Granted, I was shocked as can be that Georgetown ran a table and made it, but they are not a tournament team. I think we can all agree on that. And I just don't see them beating a team that's as sound as Colorado. And if you're going to tell me that 50% of people are putting their basket or their eggs in the Georgetown basket, I'll take that literally all day.
Yeah, and then only 18% have Colorado advancing past the round of 32. So that's where you can definitely pick up leverage on the field right there. So I love that. I cannot agree more with you, Ben. I almost wish you told. I'm happy you didn't tell me that earlier, because I had this public pick percentage open, just ready to go off about Colorado. So that's awesome. Another spot where, I mean, the public is picking it at 50-50 right now is, and I know that you might think that this is pretty 50-50, Bales, is this Uconn spot. I mean, Uconn's a 3-point favorite right now, and they're right at that 50% mark as well. Do you think that's right? Or, I mean, I'm going to lean to the favorite Uconn there. I think that they're underseeded. I think they got a really, really bad draw with Maryland, though, as a 10 seed. I mean, I think Maryland's a really, really tough 10 seed, and whoever comes out between that matchup can make a ton of noise. I slightly lean Uconn. I'm going to go with the betting favorite there, with the public pick percentage being right around 50-50. But play a little devil's advocate there for me, and maybe you could talk me off of it, because I almost like Uconn making it past the round of 32 as well.
I think I don't necessarily think this game is as 50-50 as the percentages make it. Personally, I lean Connecticut, but not by that much, because what Connecticut does well, Maryland kind of takes away. They're really good at offensive rebounding, and Maryland is one of the better teams at defensive rebounding. So they do take it away. I do think this game can go either way. I think there's one major key that's being overlooked, and I think it kind of got overlooked when Uconn got their seeding, because I think they're better than a 7 seed. And I also think that Maryland was a bad draw, because I think Maryland's a really good 10 seed. With that being said, Connecticut, I believe, only lost 3 games all season when James Bouknight played. And then they lost 4 of, I believe, 8 when he wasn't on the court. So I would assume that if he played in all the games, if he didn't miss 8 games this year, they probably don't lose. What did they? How many games did Uconn lose?
Uconn lost 7 games, 6 in the Big East. So,
and I would just assume that they didn't have those all. Maybe they lose some, but they're not going to lose all 4 of those without Bouknight. Yeah. And then when the game's on the line, who do you trust? You know, Bouknight is significantly better than like Aaron Wiggins. I mean, if one of those two is taking a shot, I'm going to side with Bouknight all night. So I think this game's close. I think Maryland's a really good team. I think that it was kind of bad that they got Uconn. I would have much preferred, a different 7-10 matchup if that was what seeding they were going to have to get. But I would definitely lean Uconn.
Yeah, one thing I did want to talk about, Bales, is listen, the months go like this. It's January, February, Izzo, April, as Mr. Rothstein says. So listen, I'm on Sparty -2 against UCLA, and then I think I'm going to go with Michigan State over BYU in that game.
So I literally I was going to ask Bales about this game while you guys were chatting. I pulled up. So right now, last night it was 70-30 BYU. It's moved to 65-35. I'm assuming that if Michigan State wins, they're going to pick up a lot of steam, Bales, at him, right? I think that would be a trendy pick. People will want to take Michigan State. But I know you and I both really like BYU.
Yeah, I would assume that people do, but I agree. It's basically January, February, Izzo went in 3 of the last 4 tournaments. Tom Izzo got bounced by the second round, but
Oh, here we go.
who cares, right? Big old Tommy's going to put Michigan State in the tournament. Now, I actually do like Michigan State. I think they have a really tough matchup against UCLA. I think that game is truly 50-50. I probably lean Izzo just because it's March and Izzo, but to me, to act like Tom Izzo is this savior where he's going to get in the tournament, he's going to bounce guys just because he's in the tournament, that's not really what happens with Michigan State. We more or less know that's not what happens. When they do well, they've already done well. They made the Final Four. They were tied for first in the Big Ten. Let's see. They made the Final Four. They were tied for third. They made the Elite Eight, tied for second. Like, it's not like they were ever, when they were tied for seventh and when they were tied for sixth, they got bounced in the second and first rounds. It's obviously Michigan State is good in March. It's just because Michigan State is good. And this year they're not as good.
I think I'll be really interested. What do you think that the betting line will be on that BYU, say it is Michigan State game, or even UCLA? I really think it's going to open. Would you take BYU like -1 or 1.5, or do you think that it would be bigger than that? Because I don't think it would be. And so that's where I struggle, is if the public pick percentage is as far off as 65-35, I'm really going to want to side with that playing team. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where my mind goes when it comes to, trying to gain leverage on the field.
Yeah. So here's the small problem with just doing something like that from a blue blood like UCLA or you got Michigan State. The problem is the line is most likely going to be off anyway, because when
it's such a public team,
you're in March and you're like, oh, who's going to win? Michigan State, BYU. Who cares? Anyone that is anyone is just going to bet Michigan State. Could you imagine the average person being like, I'm going BYU on this bad boy?
Yeah. No, I think you're definitely right about that.
I think where I would set the line personally, BYU 3.5 against either of them, I think.
Yeah, I think you may get that against UCLA, but I don't think you would get that against Michigan State. I think it'd be closer to 2. Yeah, 2 or at 2, and then it gets bet down, just because so much public money comes in and they're going to balance the book a little bit there.
All right, before we move on to the next region, I'll start with you, Bales. Give me one team. If Michigan doesn't win, and Alabama, like if it's not Michigan or Alabama making it to the Final Four from this region, give me one team that you would bet on there.
I'll take BYU.
Oh baby!
I think they're Final Four good. I legitimately think BYU's Final Four good.
Oh man,
they have a hard road. I think I guess what I don't do that well when I tell everyone, like when I say my stuff, I think BYU is Final Four good, but they need to go through Michigan State or UCLA, then they need to go through Texas, then probably Alabama.
It's a tough road.
So yeah, it's so hard of a road that it probably doesn't happen. But I think that they have the talent to get to the Final Four. It's just obviously their road's going to be much harder than someone like Alabama.
Yeah, their road is really tough. If I had to pick a sneaky team coming out of here, it's going to be the team that Bales hates. It's going to be my Longhorns. I'm gonna be all over Texas here. Listen, I'm gonna be all over Texas here. I think because I really do. I don't really want to have Alabama going far because I think that second round matchup is going to be really, really tough for whoever gets out. I really think Alabama could get bounced early, so I don't really want to be invested in them going far personally, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think mine actually would be Uconn. I think they can beat Alabama, and then if they start picking up some steam, see what happens from there. But I like that they have one guy that can really take over a game. I think that's important. But I would probably go them. Do you have public pick data? Like how far? Like if Uconn like Sweet 16, Elite 8, what are they? They have to be like sub 4%. I would guess.
I have Uconn Elite 8 is 4.6%. So.
Yeah, I think that's interesting.
That's a really good edge. This Uconn team feels like when they could just solely rely on. Remember when Shabazz Napier did it, and then Kemba did it before him? Like,
Yeah, it's
that's
like
kind of what
they've
Pope feels
this
like.
team is constructed very similarly. It's interesting, but
Mhm.
like just the way Alabama plays, I love the way they play. Like from being a basketball fan, but if they're not making threes, they could easily lose a game.
The thing about Alabama is that they play the right way, is what they
Yeah,
do. They shoot threes or they make dunks,
and
and that's what
they're really
every
good
team should do.
defensively. So it does help out. But
Yeah, they make threes, they stop threes, and
Alabama has the worst Final Four percentage of all of the 1 or 2 seeds as well. So the public doesn't really love Alabama either. So you're not gaining a ton of edge on it. But
what is Michigan at then?
Wait a minute. Time out.
You heard
Alabama
me right.
has worse percentage to make the Final Four than Iowa?
Than Iowa. Yep. Slightly. I mean, it's one point, but yep.
Wow.
Yeah, I know that's crazy. That's crazy. Listen, I'm telling you guys, I really think the championships are the winners are going to be way more spread out than we think when it comes to Gonzaga. So it seems like all three of us are going to be on the Zags and riding it hard, and I'm okay with that. Listen, I'm fine with that. I'll get weird somewhere else or try to pick up points somewhere else. I'm good riding Gonzaga.
Yeah. All right, we'll move over to the South, Baylor's region. Rueb, I know you and I both really like Purdue as the number 4 seed here. I think that they're not necessarily undervalued as their seed, but I think just people don't want to pick Purdue, man. I just don't think they do. So I think Purdue's undervalued here. Ohio State, obviously I'm an Ohio State fan. I hate when Ohio State's good at basketball because any league I play in around here, the homers just like pick them super far. So it's a lose-lose for me because I either don't pick them and then they go super far, or I pick them super far and they lose early. And it's not a good situation for me. So I like my sneaky team here's Purdue. I really like them. Rube, I'll start with you. I know you like Purdue as well, so I'll start with you.
Yeah, I like Purdue as well. I think the Purdue Baylor matchup will be really interesting. For me, it's difficult for me to really really tout Purdue over Baylor just because Baylor hasn't been great since the COVID break, but they could really really get it going in a big way with their rim protection is fantastic and they're big down low. I don't know. It's definitely a tougher matchup for Purdue. So I would love to get them past Baylor, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. The one team I think is going pretty. For a 3 seed, the lowest pick percentage 3 seed to make it to the Elite 8 is Arkansas right now, and I think they got a really good draw. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. I feel like they got a super good draw for them to have, the same public pick percentage as, they're lower than Oklahoma State. They're right around where Virginia and Purdue are right now as the 3 seed. So what do you guys think about that?
I really like Arkansas. Some things in the numbers, and I don't want to give too much away, but it's one thing specifically is trying to really pull me away, and I feel like I'm battling. Do I make this exception? Do I not make it? So I don't want to give too much away on that, but I think Arkansas is really good. I think one of the problems is one, Colgate's a pretty bad matchup just for the fact that they're basically Arkansas. They're very similar, and when you kind of play a team that's the same as you, if they're just hot that day, there's not really too much of a way for you to stop it. And not that I'm not taking Colgate. Don't try to twist the words for that. I think Arkansas beats them. Texas Tech, I really like. I have a ticket from the preseason of Texas Tech. So I don't think that's as easy. And then Ohio State, I think, is going to be difficult. But I could 100% see Arkansas making the Elite 8. And I do think that it's kind of weird that they have the lowest percentage, honestly.
Yeah, they're super low. So I'm going to push back on Texas Tech a little bit. I think they got a pretty bad draw here. I think they could lose here I think they could get bounced early. Well, what do you think about that, Bales? I mean,
I'm sure you do.
listen, Utah. Listen, a ton of good money is coming in on Utah State here. I mean, this line has moved heavily in their favor. I mean, it's all the way down to 4.5.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. They protect the rim really well. I don't know. It's tough. I feel like Arkansas is going to have to shoot well to beat them.
You mean Texas Tech?
Oh, that's what I mean. Sorry. Yeah. I think Texas Tech is going to have to shoot really well in order to beat them. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing that is kind of weird for me about this game. Everyone's kind of like, Utah State doesn't give up any points in the paint. That's fine. Texas Tech doesn't take them. So I know that they shoot around the rim a good amount, but Texas Tech is much better at shooting the three ball. If Utah State is going to make Texas Tech do what they're better at and refuse to do, I feel like that's kind of putting an advantage for them. On top of it, you're really going to beat Texas Tech in two ways, which is offensive rebounds and the three-point. Utah State, really good offensive rebounding team. I'll give them that without question, but they don't shoot overly well. And when you get a team like Texas Tech, you're going to have to shoot to beat them. And I feel like everyone's kind of, I don't want to say jumping from Tech, because it didn't feel very much like anyone was with them at any point. But look at who they've lost to. They lost a pretty bad game to Houston, but it was only the third game of the season, and a lot of the guys were first starting to play together.
Don't even count that. You can't even. I don't even count that kind of stuff.
Yeah, other losses: Kansas, 2 to Oklahoma State, Baylor, 2 to West Virginia, I guess 2 to Baylor, 2 to Kansas, and then they lost by 1 to Texas on a neutral court. Who in the world is worse than Utah State out of those teams? Because Utah State has losses to, they lost on the road to UNLV, they lost twice to Boise, they lost a neutral site to South Dakota State, VCU beat them, they lost at home to Colorado State. There's a lot of questionable at best losses in there. Whereas when you look at Texas Tech, sure, they didn't go out and they didn't really dominate the season the way a lot of people thought they were going to, but they lost to teams that they more or less should have lost to.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just think it's a bad matchup, because I do agree that Arkansas does, they like to shoot around the rim a lot, and Utah State is going to be able to force them outside. And I think that 3-point percentage number on Texas Tech, I don't know if I would necessarily say that they're better at that when they're going to be forced to shoot a higher percentage of volume on that. You know, I feel like because right now with their ability to drive and kick it out, I feel like they're getting way more uncontested threes just on the way that they play offense. And if they're forced into higher volume, I don't know if those percentages necessarily will carry right over, you know? I don't know. I think it's a tough matchup for them. I do.
I think the problem is they only really have 3 shooters, but they have when do they play? Friday, Saturday, almost an entire week to game plan. You have to assume that they're going to game plan for McClung, Shannon, and Edwards to be spotting up. Or my guess, and another thing that Utah State does well, but Texas Tech draws just a ton of fouls. So if Texas Tech can get in and get Queta into some foul trouble, I know he doesn't foul a ridiculous amount.
It doesn't matter though. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. Definitely.
And if they can get him into foul trouble, now they're probably playing with Justin Bean at the 5, which literally is playing into Tech's hand. The only thing that I think Utah State has right now is the size, but you're assuming that Queta can stay on the court, in which, you know, can he? He probably can. I think it depends how much a guy like Mac McClung decides that he's going. McClung, Shannon, and McCullough are all extremely, extremely good at drawing fouls. So if they decide that they want to take Queta out of the game, I do think that they have the ability to do it. I just, you know, I never want to bank on a 7-footer picking up 2 quick fouls and them having to play with a 6'7" guy at center the rest of the game. You know what I mean? I think it's a tough thing to bank on, but I think that there's more or less very clear paths that Tech has to win this game.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I do want to get rapid fire both of you guys real quick. Two really tough ones for me here in my bracket. Just the UNC Wisconsin game and then the Florida Tech game. Do you guys have leans like heavy either way? Because I really don't, and I'm really struggling. I think UNC has a decent advantage down low, but so I'm kind of leaning them, but I'm completely torn on that Florida Virginia Tech game.
Yeah, I think Virginia Tech over Florida is a free point. Virginia Tech's really good rebounding. Florida is really bad at rebounding. I don't know, Bales, if you can disagree with me if you want, but I think Virginia Tech is going to win.
Yeah, I prefer Virginia Tech.
Because it's like 50-50, right? So I just think that's like, I'll just take Virginia Tech for sure.
I think it's pretty 50-50, like in terms of who wins the game. I think Florida definitely has their chances. And I'm not going to say that I would just necessarily lock in Virginia Tech, but I do tend to lean that way.
Yeah. Pick percentage is 50-50 as well. So that's why I'm pretty torn on it. But
yeah, Wisconsin, North Carolina is a tough one. I could see either of those teams winning. I could see either of those teams competing with Baylor in the second game. I don't know, Bales. You give me your lean here. You know more than me. That's a tough call. I could make a case for either of those teams, I think.
I think you can make a case for either. I think if I had to just say one specific thing, North Carolina's trending up, Wisconsin's trending down.
Yeah.
I think that might be enough to lean you one way or the other. But at the same time, if Wisconsin plays as well as we know that they can play, because if you look at all their losses,
yeah, they're good losses, man. They're playing, in one of the best conferences in basketball.
Yeah, their worst loss obviously is a road game to Marquette. But after that game, I mean, they lost to Maryland, Michigan, Ohio State, Illinois, Michigan, Iowa, Illinois, Purdue, Iowa. Like they just lose to all these really good teams. So, I would be fine going either one of those two, honestly. And do you have the percentages? It feels like North Carolina's kind of a sexy pick right now.
It is. I mean, it's trending up at 54%. So it is a pretty sexy pick. But right. The problem is I slightly lean North Carolina. So that's why I'm like.
Bales, do you think UNC has a chance against Baylor if that's the matchup that we get?
Yeah, we talked about this on the other podcast. I think it comes down to one thing. Baylor's 3-point shooting. If Baylor's hitting them, UNC doesn't have the shooting to stay in it. If they're missing them, though, Baylor doesn't have the size to keep up with UNC. It's really not even close. UNC is going to have so many second chance points.
They're so physical too, man.
Yeah, and they have, 4 7-footers?
Yeah.
Like, you take one out of the game, and they're just going to bring in another, and they can do it over and over and over. And at the beginning of the season, I was like, oh, Walker Kessler is going to be good, but he's not good now. Well, it's the end of the season, and he's good now.
If they had any semblance of 3-point shooting, I would like them as like a lot live to make like a little bit of a run, but they're just so bad at shooting, man. They can't shoot free throw. They can't shoot anything.
If they had two guys, and this isn't a joke, if they had two guys that shot 370 outside of Kerwin Walton, I think North Carolina would be arguably second, third, fourth, top 5 to win the national title this year.
I agree.
Instead, they can't shoot, and they're going to get bounced early.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Before we move on, I'll go ahead.
Fun pick percentage for North Carolina is 3% to make it to the Final Four. So.
Oh my God, that's way too high.
That's 3% too high. No, not 3%, but yeah. Before we move on, the 12-5 I like is Winthrop over Villanova. Bales, I don't know if you disagree, but Vadran actually went to high school right near me, so I've watched him since he was a little kid. But I think that's the 12-5 I like. Everybody always likes to pick a 12-5.
This is really funny because I was just under the assumption that Winthrop was the 12-5 that was going to be popular. And then you hit me with the Georgetown. And I was like, wait a minute. people aren't going Winthrop.
Dude, the
But
Georgetown's crazy.
well,
man.
Colin Gillespie, I don't think people understand how much he meant to Villanova. And then when you look at what they're doing now without him, I don't know if you know who has taken a lot of the minutes, but it's Chris Archidiakono.
Yep.
And before he played against Providence, he played 25 against Providence, and then he played 34 against Georgetown, right?
Yep.
In his career, which is basically 2 years, I think he's played less than 25 minutes for Villanova.
Oh my
This
God.
season, he played slightly more than 10 before getting big minutes when Gillespie went down. So when you're moving a guy that literally doesn't even play into a major role for what could be one of the best point guards in the entire tournament, like it doesn't make sense that Georgetown is getting more love than Winthrop at this point.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. I think it's a good pick. But we can finish up here with the Midwest, Illinois region. I think personally, I think Houston is really undervalued here. I think Illinois is clearly the second best team in basketball behind Gonzaga, but I think Houston is really good, and I would be curious what percentage has them going to the Final Four, because I would guess it's super low. Because I think with Illinois winning the Big Ten tournament, like I think people have kind of come on to them now.
Yeah, no, it's significantly low. Obviously second lowest behind Iowa, down to 14%. So
yeah, like that. I really like that. If you're making multiple brackets, I definitely like getting some Houston exposure there. Rueb, I'll start with you. Is there anything that sticks out to you here? I think really like just that Houston one for me. I think Illinois and Houston are above everyone else in this little section here. Oklahoma State, Illinois will be a really fun game to watch, but I don't necessarily know if I think they can beat Illinois.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch that. Watch Cade versus Illinois. That'll be a ton of fun. I think we have the largest public pick percentage versus spread discrepancy right here in this region, and it's Rutgers over Clemson. Only 40% of the 38% actually percent of the field has Rutgers advancing, and they're a 2-point favorite right now. So those are the kind of leverage spots that we are looking for. And it wasn't too long ago that Rutgers was, a top 10 team in the country, and then they just fell off so quickly. They finally started to get into their difficult part of their Big Ten schedule, and they lost a lot of good games, but I'm going to go with Rutgers here just based on the fact that they're the betting favorite and the public is not on them. So,
yeah, Bales, would you call that a free point in your bracket pools right there? Rutgers over Clemson.
See, I would take it. I'm going to take it, but I don't necessarily think you can call it a free point because it solely depends on what Clemson team comes to show up. I think we talked about this before we came on, but Clemson is either so good or so bad. I personally would probably just take Rutgers, especially if they're going at a lower percentage than Clemson. I think that's crazy. But at the same time, like Clemson could come out and beat them by 20. That wouldn't even slightly shock me. It's just I also wouldn't be shocked if Rutgers comes out and beats Clemson by 20, which is my easy way of covering all of my bases, so no one can blame me for this pick.
Yeah. One other public pick percentage that I wanted to get to as well is Loyola Chicago's being advanced in 51% right now, and they just moved to a -3 favorite today. So if that's another 50-50, another 50-50 public pick that they're the betting favorite and it's moving in their direction. So
yeah, I was literally just gonna ask you for that because I've seen a ton of hype on Georgia Tech as like the trendy like upset pick. So that doesn't shock me at all. Yeah. But Bales, you agree? Are we taking Loyola there?
I'm fine with either.
Yeah, who's the Georgia Tech big man that is going to give Loyola fits that everyone loves?
Moses Wright.
Yeah, Moses. Yeah, people love him.
The problem is Wright wasn't even really like the top dog. Alvarado and DeVoe were the two guards that were more or less just going to come in and dominate for Georgia Tech. And then Moses Wright is just the big man that has just had an incredible season. The problem with Georgia Tech is their bench. They literally don't have one. Now someone tested positive for COVID. I don't know who. I don't know if it's a player. If literally a player is out, their bench gets even shorter. If it's a starter, their bench is. If it's a starter, they're going to have someone that has played less than 60 minutes, playing probably, or less than 60% of the minutes, playing probably 80% of the minutes in the tournament. So I think it's a weird situation in which I feel more comfortable with Loyola, but I think that this was probably the worst draw for any two teams, because Loyola is better than an 8, Georgia Tech probably better than a 9, and I don't know if I think that they're that close to those numbers. So it kind of sucks that one of the two is going to eliminate the other one, but it kind of is what it is.
Can either of you confirm Sister Jean is able to attend this? Is this correct? If that is the case, they're not losing, man. There's some type of voodoo going on there, man. You got like 101-year-old lady there. Like, I'm not going
Can't
against
let her
that.
down.
Man. Yeah, I'm not going against that, man. It's
Listen,
what reason?
Then you have the Illinois rivalry, Illinois versus Loyola Chicago. I mean, it sets up perfectly. I want to see that storyline.
It writes
itself.
That's
great.
Man.
Yep.
I know that James. What was it? Yesterday we were talking, and you were talking about how you don't like Illinois because of the road. And I wholeheartedly disagree. I actually think that Illinois got a pretty good draw if everything happens the way that it should.
I don't know, man. I don't want to go against Cade. If I'm Illinois, I know that they have massive advantages, and I have Illinois going to my national championship. But I mean, it's tough when I think Oklahoma State's the best 4 seed. I don't know.
No, I agree. I think Oklahoma State probably should be a 2, but when you just look strictly at the matchup, who's stopping Coburn? Literally nobody. No.
Yeah, I agree. I just think, like you said, I think that 8-9 matchup is the most difficult. Arguably, the UNC one's tough too. So I don't know. There's some really competitive 8-9s for these 1 seeds, which I think is pretty interesting. Which we were talking before as well. I mean, for not having Duke and Kentucky in this field is freaking loaded, man. There's a ton of really, really competitive matchups, which is really exciting.
Yeah, one undervalued team I want to talk about real quick before we wrap up here. San Diego State. Bales, can you sell me on them? What is that pick percentage? I would guess Syracuse is getting some hype, man. Just because of the name alone.
So listen, that's what I thought. I thought Syracuse would be getting some hype, and they're not. It's 60-40 right now towards San Diego State, and San Diego State's the betting favorite. I think they've moved to 3 or 3.5 right now, and I kind of wanted to be on Syracuse. Some people I've been talking to have made good points. You're not getting Syracuse. Like, I think Syracuse is a tough team to play in the round of 32, where you're not practicing for a week against the zone and whatnot. That's where they get a little bit more appealing. But I was kind of leaning Cuse, and then when I saw that public pick percentage, I was like, I guess I'm going San Diego State. I don't know. It's tough.
Mainly, Bales, can San Diego State beat West Virginia? I think is what my question would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's a good matchup against West Virginia. San Diego State's not overly big outside of Nathan Mensah. He's 6'10", can match it with Culver. Outside of that, it's they have a little bit of size. It's not terrible. Shackle and Mitchell are both 6'6", but then you have Pulliam and Gomez. Gomez is well under 6 foot. It's fine because West Virginia they did want to come in and run a big lineup, which I don't think they do, because I don't think offensively it's good enough. They could, and they would probably have a decent advantage. But I think the San Diego State's a really bad matchup for Syracuse. I worry that they don't get enough offensive rebounds if their shot's not falling. They obviously can't beat that. And I will 100% always be worried about Buddy Boeheim just dropping 60 points. You kind of saw what he did against NC State. I think he went right under his career high, I think, with 27 before they pulled him. And then against Virginia, he came back and he dropped a career high 31. So Buddy Boeheim in a tournament just seems really, really deadly. And it's not like he's the only piece for Syracuse. So I think Hughes is a live dog. I just think that they got a pretty bad draw with San Diego State, who I do feel has the shooting to beat them.
All right. We're right on schedule here. Before we wrap this up, I'm going to go to each of you. Give me your Final Four championship and then obviously your winner, Rueb. I'll start with you.
All right, Final Four for me. I have Gonzaga, Texas, Baylor, Illinois, national championship, Illinois versus Gonzaga, and I'll take Gonzaga. So I'm going with the chalk.
You threw Texas in there, so it's not overly chalky.
True. Yeah.
For my Final Four, go ahead to betkarma.com/premium/CBB. You can get my whole bracket. It's not just a Final Four.
Yeah,
it's
you can get
bracket.
You can get Bale's whole bracket. You can get Dom's bracket, all their betting picks, access to the articles, into the Discord. $39. This is a steal. I will be purchasing the package. Bales, I will be in there.
Oh, I'll be in town
as
well. I mean, Bales and Dom have been two of the, hottest college basketball cappers in the industry right now. So I'll be telling them. I'm no dummy.
Yeah, for the little plug, since March 9th, my picks are 16-4, been absolutely killing it. Dom is up I think almost 20 units in March alone. It's been pretty crazy. And I feel like for me personally, just March Madness is by far my best betting time of the year. I feel like I'm really locked into it, and all games are really meaningful, so you don't kind of get screwed by teams not caring. But yeah, I'll give you guys my winner, Gonzaga. I'm picking Gonzaga. I do have a high upside bracket where I'm not going to pick Gonzaga. I still think you can in those, but I won't, just to give you guys something a little different. But yeah, $39. It's really cheap. I would highly recommend it and hope that we see you guys in the Discord.
Yeah, I'm kind of to be determined as well. Definitely taking Gonzaga. Definitely taking Illinois. Those two are locks for me. They'll be in my championship, and I'll have Gonzaga winning. It's kind of just deciding the other two. I don't know, man. I would lean towards Bama, and I don't know. I like one of the three of Ohio State, Baylor, and Purdue. I'm probably gonna take one of those. I don't know. I might get weird and take Purdue or just do something weird. We'll see.
Don't go with the Homer Ohio State pick.
Yeah, no, okay. I will not pick Ohio State. This is a lock. They will not be in my Final Four. I will not be picking them. I will not be picking them to the Final Four. So it's gonna be Baylor or Purdue most likely for me in that region. But thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it. If you guys like this, give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Please comment. Give us your champion, your Final Four. Any thoughts and comments if you guys enjoyed it. We appreciate the activity. And good luck.